So throughout the presentation, we're going to cover a lot of things that you can do with your students that's going to really engage them in the campus as a living lab. We in this video will talk about things like the CYPRESS Dome, the nature trails on campus that maybe you haven't visited, but throughout the rest of the presentation we will also give examples of how we and you can use the rest of campus as a living lab as well. So there's a lot of places on campus that we can use both in and out of our classroom. One of those being the campus trail systems. If you are on campus and you've never been to the campus trail system before, that's fine. A lot of students haven't either. What you're going to do is you're going to go back out the exit of 89 or the water school, and you're going to go across the loop road to our campus trails. So at the entrance there is a nice map that you can use that highlights a lot of the places that we'll be talking about throughout the video, both the CYPRESS Dome, the outdoor classroom, and it gives you a general idea of how extensive our trail system is here on campus.
All right, well, welcome to our campus CYPRESS Dome here at FGCU. We use the CYPRESS Dome for a variety of different classes. One of the main classes that I like to take out here is my environmental biology of Southwest Florida class, and when we come out here, one of the things that we talk about is ecosystem services and ecosystem function. All right, so when we're out here, we talk about, when we have a rainfall event on campus, one of the ecosystem services of our wetlands is they act like a big sponge, and they will actually absorb and filter a lot of the water. So the example that I like to use is if you had a bottle of water and you just poured it directly on your desk in your classroom, that water is going to go everywhere. But if you have a big sponge and you pour that water onto the sponge is going to fill up first, and eventually when the sponge is full and you keep pouring water on it, the water is going to seep out of the sponge, but it's not going to go everywhere. It's going to seep out in kind of a controlled, slower manner. If that water has any pollutants or dirt in it and you're pouring it into the sponge, most of those pollutants and dirt are going to get stuck inside of the sponge. And so that's how our wetlands work. And so, when we talk about that in the classroom, we read about it in the textbook, but when we come out here on campus, this is a great experience to have students just basically experience those same principles. So when we come out here, we are standing, waist deep in a cypress swamp here in Florida, and most people's perceptions would be like that this water is going to be dirty and it's going to be nasty and it's going to be muddy, right? But when you come out here and we actually look at the water, right, the water is actually relatively clean, and any turbidity that we see in the water that's maybe coming up in this video, that's actually because we just actually walked out here. On a normal day, if you're the first person to walk out here, usually you can see straight down through the bottom. Some other things that we talk about are, the decay of all the leaves and stuff on the ground. As those leaves decay, what they're doing is they're releasing tannins or tannic acid into the water, and that gives this water sort of an iced tea color. So if we look at the water and it's maybe a little bit brown, right, it's not brown because it's dirty, it's brown because of those tannins are in the water. And again, I like to relate that to things that we deal with in real life. So if I ask students if they've ever made a cup of tea and I ask them what's inside of a tea bag, they're going to tell me dried leaves. And so what makes this water this color, right? Basically dried leaves. So we're in a big cup of tea. So again, we talk about ecosystem function, and this is a great place to actually demonstrate some of that. So we talk about, water filtration, and we talk about how this is a flowing water environment. We talk about how this provides habitat for a variety of animals. And we'll also talk about Florida's seasons, right? Florida has a rainy season and a dry season, and so the water will fluctuate significantly in here throughout the year. If you come out here in the late summer, early fall months, the water may be up to your chest. If you come out here at the end of the dry season before the rain starts, so like late May, early June, you could actually come all the way out here and you're standing basically on dried cypress needles, and this place entirely will dry up. Sometimes it's a little bit muddy in the center, but it can be totally dry.
So Chad provided a lot of great examples of how you can bring science-based courses out to the CYPRESS Dome and provide a lot of good in-depth content in a field experience. When I use the swamp as a learning living lab for my university colloquium class, I use it more as an experience. So when I bring my students out here, I first start with what are they expecting a swamp to look, feel, sound like. We kind of cover that, whether it be in the classroom or right before we start our field experience, just to get an understanding of where they are starting at. once we do come in here, right, we kind of take our time. There's not a lot of content disseminated out to the students throughout the experience. They're just taking a lot in, whether it be during the experience while we're still out in the swamp, waist, chest, knee deep in water, or whether it's something that we do back in the classroom. I always follow this experience up with some type of reflection. So did your expectations, were they similar or different to what you actually experienced? Did you feel, what were some feelings that you had during your time in the swamp? What did you like about it? What were you maybe not so excited about? So those are all things that I go over with my students. What I really want them to take out of the experience is, you know, what is a swamp, right? A lot of the students coming into the University Colloquium have never experienced this type of environment, and where our water goes to, right? We deal with a lot of water quality issues here in Southwest Florida, and actually coming to the source of where a lot of those things happen is really important for students to get a first-hand view of where their water goes to, how it's stored, you know, where it's at. So, okay, so looking at the participants we have here in this session, how many of you guys have actually been out to a swamp, right? We are very lucky to be on a campus that is in the middle of a wetland. So when I am here with my students, I do provide a lot of kind of reflection time and time in the swamp for them to just experiencing what it is to be in a swamp. So as you look around here, you know, is it what they were expecting? Is it muddy? Is it scary? Are you going to be chased by alligators or snakes? And it's, a lot of students realize that it's none of that, right? We come out here, you typically never have really bad interactions with mosquitoes or other insects. I've never seen an alligator in the swamp, right? Especially coming out here with 25 plus students. It's definitely a safe environment, and having resources like the Student Naturalist program, that if you don't feel comfortable bringing your students out to, say, the swamp or on the nature trails, that's a really good resource we have on campus that allows you to have other students join you who have those experience and have those expertise to show you and your students this type of really cool, unique resource we have on campus.
All right, so this area that we're out on campus here, this is known as the outdoor classroom. So it's a little bit disheveled today because we're here not too long after the hurricane, but this is actually a really cool spot. So if you wanted to take your class outside and just have class outside, this is a cool area on campus because it's usually a little bit quieter than the main part of campus. You're away, you're surrounded by nature, and I always recommend this as just a cool place for students to come and like eat lunch or read a book or study if you want to do something outside and just kind of reconnect with nature. So those are some of the benefits of this area, and it's, you know, it's not really an area that you have to reserve or anything. It's not heavily used, but it's definitely a great place to like have your students outside, or even if you're doing some field activity or you're out collecting data and then you want your students to come back and sit down. We have a whole bunch of tables out here that you could sit down and there's a place to work, or if you want to come out here, leave some stuff at the tables, go out into the CYPRESS Dome, come back here. Plenty of opportunities for things like that.